Sometimes you got to destroy to rebuild. What's up? It's your boy Biz, and I'm back again for another episode of Small Town Big Dreams. And today we'll be talking about a requested topic, just the basics, the one, two, threes, and ABCs of starting a new business. But before we get into the content, I ask that you like this video, subscribe to this channel, share it with someone that you think it may be valuable to. And also, if you don't mind, leave me a comment below. I love to get critique so I can know how to make the channel better. But nevertheless, we are here for a reason. And that reason is to discuss just the basic steps of starting a business. So let's look at this. Step one, I would assume it's very obvious. You need to figure out exactly what it is you want to do. Figuring out what you want to do is half the battle. I mean, there's so many opportunities and so many different ways to start businesses, so many different sectors you can go to, but you really need to think through what you want to do. A lot of people will have an emotional moment, something will happen, and they'll be like, hey, I can do this, which is great. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have an imagination and vision. But you really need to think through the business that you want to start, right? Because you gotta really understand if that business is going to work well in your area, how much competition you have, just different things like that. You know, your startup costs. There's so many different things that go into starting a business. So the first thing you always got to do is really decide exactly what it is that you want to do. Number two, which is another obvious one. You need to come up with a business name, and not just come up with that name. You also need to search that name, and you can go places like the Secretary of State's website in your particular state, and you can do a name search. Because if you start a business with a name that's not yours, then legally you can't use that name. And if someone already has that name and they find out you're operating under a name that you don't own, you could see some legal battles and legal troubles with that. So I always try to be real creative whenever I'm coming up with something, as creative as I possibly can. I like all my business names to have meaning to them. And that's what I suggest to anyone else. If something just clicks to you, if it sounds too good to be true, sometimes it is. Just do a quick Google search. If that doesn't produce anything, like I said, you can always go to your Secretary of State's website and do a business search and find out if you're able to incorporate that name in that city. And not only that, once you get the name, we got number three. You need to apply for your status. So what do I mean by that? Just like the clip says, you can apply for LLC, which is probably the most popular, S Corp, C Corp, or sole proprietorship. Now, I'm not giving you advice on which one of those you should do. You should consult with an attorney if you have one, or maybe your tax preparer, an accountant, or anyone that you trust, and see exactly which status you want to go under, because they all have different advantages and they all, have different structures. So it's very important that you know exactly what type of business that you want to start, because that will have different tax implications. People you can hire, and how you hire, how you pay them as far as tax withholdings. There's just so much stuff that goes into that. So you definitely want to know what status you want to start that business under. Let's go to the next step. If you will be doing any kind of retail business or anything like that, I call this a in-between step. Basically, if you're going to be selling anything or collecting any kind of taxes for that state, then, obviously you need to apply for your sales and use tax in whatever particular state you have. Typically, you can find that information probably on your DMV or whatever department collects taxes, tax revenue in that state. But if you want to be able to open up wholesale accounts, whether it be here locally in your state or other states, they're going to require to see a sales and use tax. I don't know if it's called that in every state, but that's what it's called here. It's not expensive. It's basic information you should have if you're opening up a legitimate business. But I definitely strongly advise you to do that, because if you do operate without one of those, and if the state finds out, they're going to go back and do research, and they're going to give you a big state tax bill that you owe, and they're going to base it off whatever estimates they come up with, whether it's more than what you should actually owe or not. And if you are opening a business and you're not making money, I mean, you can always report zero if you haven't started collecting money. That way they at least know you're functioning and that you're just not making money now, and that'll will avoid you having to pay any taxes. But yeah, if you're going to be doing any kind of retail or anything that you're going to be collecting taxes for, you definitely want to look at getting a sales and use tax permit. What do we have next? Of course, apply for all, relevant city licenses. So, obviously, if you're going to be operating in the city, like I live in El Dorado, Arkansas. So if I'm going to be operating here in El Dorado, I need to go get a business license from City Hall. Very easy to get, very inexpensive to get, and it's something that you should have because whenever you're doing business, you want to do business above board as much as possible. That way you don't have anything that can hold you up or put you in any kind of legal jeopardy or legal danger when operating a business. So, a lot of times you just go up to your city hall. They'll be able to instruct you on where to go to be able to get those particular licenses. Also, depending on the type of business, you may have to get other licenses or whatever the city may require. So, you probably want to ask them exactly what all you need to operate whatever type of business that you have here, just from a local perspective. Because, yeah, you can be, obviously you can be incorporated with the state. And, obviously the next thing we'll be talking about is EIN numbers. But here locally, you cannot forget about the local government because they're going to want their cut of your business too. Everybody's going to have their hand in the cookie jar. I would say last, EIN number. Basically, that's your social security number for your business. You don't have to have one. A lot of times you can use your social security number, but I would advise getting a tax ID number because it gives you a buffer between you and any kind of liability with the business, so it's not tied to your social security. And then it's free. You just go to irs.gov and you go find the tab that talks about the EIN. You just go in there, you fill out the relevant information, and man, you can get one just like that. And like I said, it doesn't cost any money. So I think, if you're in business, you should definitely have a EIN number. Now, a couple other things you should consider when starting a new business are certifications and the regulations. So basically, when I talk about certifications, I'm meaning like minority business owner or women's business owner or veterans business owner or disadvantaged disabled person. These type of certifications can give you a competitive advantage, and whenever you're going out to business, especially if you're competing for contracts or anything like with the state or federal government, they're going to definitely give credence to people with those certifications. And basically all it is basically a vetting situation where the state and, the federal government, they vet you to make sure you're a legitimate business, that you have all your prerequisites to be able to do business, that everything is in order. So then they'll basically add you to a list of publications. So when bigger businesses are looking for smaller businesses, minority-owned business, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, when they're looking for people to do business with, and you have that certification, it definitely gives you a competitive advantage against someone that doesn't have it. And that doesn't mean that you're going to automatically get it, but it does give you a competitive advantage, and it's just like anything else. It's just filling out paperwork, taking the time to do it. Also, regulations. Regulations can really hurt a person's dream. I've been in a highly regulated business before, and you just have to be careful with everything. So you definitely want to check the regulations and all the do's and don'ts if you enter a particular business. So for instance, when I used to own my smoke shop, I'm selling vaporized products, gummies, just different anything you can inhale in your body. So obviously that's a whole different set of regulations. So you just got to make sure you're doing everything that the state requires you to do whenever you're in certain industries. So, it's not much to that, but like I said, do your own research and all that. So this is just a quick video, just surface level, some of the steps you want to take whenever starting a business. Obviously, you want to do your research on everything that I said, verify for yourself. Also go to your business mentors if you have them, or just anyone you trust like an attorney, just kind of, if you want to reference what I put up, that's great. Matter of fact, I'll put it up one more time if you want to kind of look at it, screenshot it. In fact, I'll remove myself from the screen. anyway, man, I hope this helps someone. If you got any questions or comments, please leave them in the chat. If you'd like to contact me, if you got any questions about anything I've said, leave a comment in the chat. Let me know, man. I love to break bread and talk business with other business owners or even people that's, motivated to start a business. That definitely brings me a lot of joy. So please don't hesitate. Also, if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone that you think it may benefit, and that'll definitely help the channel out. But other than that, until the next time, I thank you all for staying all the way through the video. I'm out. Peace.